There is a common belief in modern spirituality that empaths are here to heal everyone. They are described as emotional caretakers, people who absorb pain and transform it into comfort for others. But this idea, while comforting, hides a deeper and more unsettling truth. Empaths are not born simply to heal wounds. They are born to reveal them. Their presence does not only soothe people, it exposes what has been buried inside the human psyche for generations. An empath walks into a room and immediately senses what others try to hide. Not just emotions, but tensions, unspoken conflicts, quiet resentments, and silent fears. Most people learn to cover these things with polite smiles and practice behaviors. Society teaches us how to appear stable, successful, and emotionally controlled. But beneath that mask lies the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, suppress, or refuse to acknowledge. The empath does not search for this shadow intentionally. It reveals itself naturally in their presence. When someone who is deeply sensitive to emotional truth interacts with others, the false layers begin to weaken. People may feel strangely uncomfortable around an empath, even when the empath has said nothing confrontational. This discomfort is not caused by the empath's actions. It is caused by the silent mirror they carry. The shadow is not simply darkness or evil. It is everything we have rejected about ourselves: anger, jealousy, insecurity, fear, and sometimes even hidden desires or unrealized potential. Most individuals spend their lives protecting their identity from these hidden aspects. They build an image of who they believe they should be. Yet the shadow waits quietly beneath the surface, shaping behaviors in subtle ways. Empaths disturb this fragile balance. Their sensitivity detects emotional contradictions instantly. They feel when words do not match energy, when kindness hides manipulation, when confidence hides insecurity. Without saying anything, their awareness creates a subtle pressure in the psychological space around them. This is why many empaths notice a strange pattern in their lives. Some people feel deeply drawn to them, almost magnetically. Others react with irritation, defensiveness, or even hostility. The empath may wonder what they did wrong, but the reaction is rarely about their behavior. It is about the mirror they unknowingly hold. When someone sees a reflection of their hidden emotions, two things can happen. One response is awakening. The person begins to question themselves, to confront their suppressed feelings, and eventually grow into greater self-awareness. The other response is resistance. Instead of facing the shadow, the person rejects the mirror and blames the empath. This is why empaths often feel misunderstood. They may enter situations with good intentions, yet somehow become the center of emotional reactions they did not create. It is not because they are responsible for others' pain. It is because their presence disrupts emotional illusions. The deeper purpose of empathy is not emotional rescue. It is revelation. Empaths illuminate the unconscious patterns that keep people trapped in cycles of denial. They bring awareness to what has been avoided. This process is uncomfortable, sometimes even painful, but it is also the beginning of transformation. Human growth rarely begins in comfort. It begins when we finally see what we have refused to see. The empath's role is not to carry the emotional burdens of the world, but to awaken consciousness within it. Their sensitivity acts like a quiet signal, reminding others that authenticity cannot coexist with repression forever. When empaths understand this truth, their life begins to change. They stop trying to fix everyone. They stop absorbing every emotional storm around them. Instead, they learn to stand in their awareness without losing themselves inside other people's struggles. In doing so, they fulfill their deeper role, not as healers who carry the weight of humanity, but as catalysts who awaken it. Their presence reveals the shadow so that others may finally face it. And once the shadow is seen, transformation becomes possible. Empaths are not here to erase darkness. They are here to illuminate it, because only what is illuminated can truly change. Empaths are often described as natural healers, people who carry a special ability to comfort others and absorb emotional pain. Many believe their primary purpose is to soothe suffering and restore harmony wherever conflict or sadness appears. While empathy certainly allows them to understand and support others on a deep level, this common interpretation only touches the surface of their true psychological role. The deeper function of an empath is not simply to heal emotions, but to reveal truths that often remain hidden beneath the surface of human behavior. Human beings naturally develop emotional defenses throughout life. From childhood, people learn that certain feelings are unacceptable inconvenient, or even dangerous to express. Anger may be suppressed to maintain peace. Insecurity may be hidden behind confidence, and fear may be buried beneath control or perfectionism. Over time, these suppressed emotions do not disappear. They simply move into the unconscious part of the mind, that they continue to influence decisions, relationships, and reactions without the person fully understanding why. An empath possesses an unusual sensitivity to emotional energy, allowing them to sense these contradictions between what people display and what they truly feel. When someone speaks calmly but carries unresolved tension, the empath often notices it immediately. When a smile hides resentment or insecurity, the empath can feel the emotional imbalance, even if no words reveal it. This awareness is not something they consciously search for. It emerges naturally from their heightened emotional perception. Because of this sensitivity, empaths often function like living mirrors within social environments. Their presence can unintentionally reflect the emotional state of others back to them. When people encounter someone who quietly senses their hidden feelings, it can create a subtle psychological pressure. The empath may not confront anyone directly, yet their awareness disrupts the illusion that everything is perfectly under control. This is why interactions with empaths can produce strong reactions. Some individuals feel deeply understood and safe in their presence because the empath recognizes their authentic emotions without judgment. Others, however, may feel strangely uncomfortable or defensive without fully understanding why. The discomfort often arises because the empath's presence touches emotions that the person has been trying to ignore or suppress. In many cases, the empath becomes confused by these reactions. They may question why certain people suddenly withdraw, become irritated, or behave defensively around them. The empath might assume they have said something wrong or created conflict unintentionally. Yet the tension usually does not originate from the empath's behavior. It comes from the silent exposure of emotional realities that others are not yet ready to acknowledge. When hidden emotions surface, people face a choice. They can begin to reflect on their inner world and gradually gain greater self-awareness, or they can protect their existing identity by denying what has been revealed. The empath does not force either outcome. Their role is simply to bring awareness to what already exists beneath the surface of the human psyche. In this way, the empath's presence becomes a catalyst for psychological honesty. Rather than acting only as comforters who absorb emotional pain, they serve as subtle awakeners of truth. Their sensitivity reveals the complex emotional layers that shape human behavior, allowing individuals to see parts of themselves that might otherwise remain hidden for years. Their sensitivity naturally detects suppressed emotions and psychological contradictions in others, often in ways that feel almost instinctive rather than deliberate. While most people rely primarily on spoken words and visible behavior to understand those around them, a highly sensitive individual tends to perceive emotional signals that exist beneath the surface of ordinary interaction. Subtle changes in tone, pauses in speech, forced smiles, or an unusual shift in energy can immediately create an inner awareness that something deeper is happening within the other person. Human communication is rarely as simple as it appears. People learn early in life how to present certain versions of themselves to the world. They develop social masks that help them fit into expectations, maintain relationships, and avoid conflict. These masks are not always intentional forms of deception. Often they are simply protective habits formed through experience. Someone who once faced criticism for expressing anger may learn to hide it behind politeness. Another person who felt unsafe, showing vulnerability, may develop a calm, controlled personality that conceals their fears. Because of these protective layers, there is often a gap between what people express and what they truly feel. Words may communicate confidence, while the emotional tone carries anxiety. A person might speak kindly but carry subtle resentment that appears only in brief flashes of tension or sarcasm. These contradictions are common in everyday life, yet many individuals overlook them because they focus primarily on the logical content of conversation. A highly sensitive empath, however, tends to notice these inconsistencies immediately. Their attention is drawn not only to the message being delivered, but also to the emotional atmosphere surrounding it. The empath senses when someone's energy does not fully align with their words, even when no obvious conflict is visible. There may be a quiet awareness that the person is struggling with emotions they are not openly expressing. This perception does not come from judgment or suspicion. Instead, It arises from an acute attunement to emotional patterns. Empaths often absorb the emotional environment around them, allowing them to experience subtle feelings that others might overlook. When someone suppresses sadness, frustration, or insecurity, the empath may feel traces of those emotions internally, almost as if they are sensing echoes of another person, as in a world. As a result, social interactions can become complex for the empath. They might sit in a conversation where everything appears normal on the surface, yet internally they feel a mixture of emotions that do not belong to them. The other person may insist they are fine, but the empath senses tension, worry, or unresolved conflict behind the calm exterior. This creates a unique awareness that can be both insightful and overwhelming. Such sensitivity also reveals psychological contradictions within individuals. People often try to maintain a consistent identity, presenting themselves as confident, kind, successful, or emotionally stable. Yet beneath that identity may exist conflicting feelings that challenge the image they wish to maintain. The empath detects these internal divisions, noticing when someone's behavior is driven by emotions they themselves may not fully recognize. Through this heightened perception, the empath becomes aware of emotional realities that remain invisible to many others. Without needing direct confession or confrontation, they sense the complex emotional layers that shape human behavior. Their awareness exposes the hidden dialogue between the conscious personality and the suppressed emotions that quietly influence it. The presence of an empath often functions like a quiet mirror, reflecting parts of the human psyche that people rarely notice within themselves. This reflection does not occur through deliberate confrontation or criticism. Instead, it happens through subtle emotional awareness that makes hidden aspects of a person, as in a world, more visible. Many individuals move through life identifying strongly with the parts of themselves they believe are acceptable, admirable, or socially valued. They build identities around qualities such as kindness, strength, confidence, or control. At the same time, other emotions and impulses are pushed aside because they feel uncomfortable or inconsistent with that image. These rejected parts form what can be described as the hidden shadow of the personality. It contains emotions people prefer not to acknowledge, such as jealousy, resentment, fear, insecurity, and anger. Sometimes it also includes desires, creativity, or ambitions that were discouraged or suppressed earlier in life. Although these aspects remain hidden from conscious awareness, they do not disappear. They continue to influence behavior in subtle ways, shaping reactions, relationships, and decisions from beneath the surface. When an empath enters someone's life, their heightened emotional awareness begins to illuminate these concealed layers. The empath does not intentionally search for flaws or weaknesses, but their sensitivity naturally detects emotional signals that others might overlook. Because they are attuned to authenticity, they often sense when someone's outward behavior does not fully match their internal emotional state. This awareness creates a subtle psychological reflection that can reveal contradictions within a person's self-image. For example, someone who believes they are always calm and rational may suddenly feel irritated or defensive in the presence of an empath. A person who sees themselves as generous and selfless might notice unexpected feelings of envy or competition rising to the surface. These reactions are not caused by anything the empath deliberately says or does. Instead, the empath's presence quietly exposes emotional patterns that were previously hidden behind carefully maintained identities. This mirror effect can feel unsettling because it disrupts the comfort of familiar self-perception. Most individuals prefer to view themselves in ways that preserve their sense of stability and control. When hidden emotions appear unexpectedly, it challenges the story they tell themselves about who they are. The empath does not create these emotions. They simply reveal what has been quietly present all along. Some people respond to this reflection with curiosity and self-examination. They begin to notice their reactions more closely and explore the deeper emotions that have been influencing their behavior. In these moments, the empath becomes a catalyst for personal insight. By revealing the shadow, they give others an opportunity to understand themselves more honestly. Others react with discomfort or resistance. Instead of examining the emotions that arise, they may project their unease outward, blaming the empath for making them feel exposed or unsettled. The mirror is rejected because the reflection feels too unfamiliar or threatening to accept. Yet, even in these reactions, the empath's presence continues to reveal hidden aspects of the psyche that might otherwise remain unnoticed. Through this quiet process of reflection, the empath becomes more than simply a compassionate listener. Their awareness illuminates emotional truths that many people avoid confronting, allowing the hidden shadow to step briefly into the light of consciousness. When hidden emotions are quietly reflected back to someone, the experience rarely leaves them unchanged. Being confronted with parts of the self that were previously ignored or suppressed can create a powerful psychological moment. In that moment, a person often moves in one of two directions. The reflection can inspire personal awakening, leading to deeper self-awareness, or it can trigger defensive resistance, where the individual instinctively protects their existing identity from uncomfortable truths. Personal awakening begins when someone allows themselves to pause and observe their reaction instead of immediately rejecting it. When the presence of an empath subtly exposes emotional contradictions, the person may begin to sense that something within them deserves attention. A sudden feeling of irritation, sadness, or insecurity might spark curiosity rather than denial. Instead of blaming external circumstances, they start asking quiet internal questions. Why did that comment affect me so strongly? Why do I feel uneasy, even though nothing obvious has happened? This kind of reflection opens the door to greater psychological awareness. As individuals examine their reactions, they may gradually recognize patterns they had never fully understood before. They might notice unresolved resentment that has quietly shaped their relationships, or insecurities that have influenced their need for control or approval. The empath's presence does not force these realizations, but simply creates the conditions where they can emerge naturally. Through this process, a person begins to integrate parts of themselves that were once hidden or rejected. Emotions that were previously denied are acknowledged with greater honesty. This does not happen instantly, but over time, it leads to a deeper sense of authenticity. Instead of maintaining a rigid self-image, the individual becomes more open to understanding the complexity of their own inner world. What once felt threatening becomes an opportunity for growth and emotional maturity. However, not everyone chooses this path of reflection. For many people, encountering hidden aspects of themselves feels deeply uncomfortable. The human mind has strong protective mechanisms designed to preserve stability and identity. When emotions surface that challenge how someone sees themselves, the instinctive response may be to defend against the experience rather than explore it. Defensive resistance often appears in subtle ways. A person may dismiss the empath as insights, insisting that nothing is wrong or that the situation is being misunderstood. Sometimes the discomfort transforms into irritation or criticism directed at the empath. The individual may accuse them of being overly sensitive, intrusive, or even manipulative, even when the empath has done nothing more than quietly observe. In other cases, people distance themselves entirely. They withdraw from the relationship or limit interaction because the presence of the empath creates feelings they would rather avoid. This reaction is not necessarily intentional hostility. It is often a psychological strategy to maintain emotional comfort by avoiding situations that reveal internal conflict. Both responses reveal something important about human nature. Personal awakening requires courage and a willingness to face inner complexity, while defensive resistance protects the familiar structure of identity. The empath, as reflection, does not determine which path someone takes. It simply illuminates what already exists within the person, leaving them to decide whether they will explore the truth that has surfaced or retreat from it. Empaths are often perceived as emotional caretakers, people who naturally absorb the feelings of others and provide comfort wherever pain appears. Because of their deep sensitivity, many individuals begin to rely on them as a source of understanding and emotional support. Over time, this expectation can create the belief that the empath's role is to fix the emotional struggles of everyone around them. Yet this belief places a heavy and unrealistic responsibility on those who are simply more aware of emotional experiences, not responsible for solving them. Human emotions are deeply personal and complex. Each individual carries their own history of experiences, memories, fears, and unresolved conflicts. These inner struggles cannot truly be healed by someone else stepping in and carrying the weight for them. Real emotional healing requires personal recognition, responsibility, and inner effort. While empathy can provide understanding and compassion, it cannot replace the personal work required for genuine transformation, because empaths feel emotional energy so strongly. They often sense when someone nearby is experiencing pain, anxiety, or internal conflict. This awareness can create a natural desire to help. They may listen carefully, offer reassurance, or try to calm tense situations in moderation. These actions reflect kindness and emotional intelligence. However, when the empath begins to believe that they must constantly solve other people's emotional problems, their sensitivity can turn into a heavy burden. Many empaths gradually fall into patterns of emotional overextension. They may become the person everyone turns to during moments of crisis. Friends, family members, or partners may repeatedly share their struggles, expecting comfort and guidance each time difficulties arise. Because the empath feels the distress so strongly, they may try to absorb or manage the emotions of others as if they were their own responsibility. Over time, this creates emotional exhaustion, confusion, and sometimes resentment. The difficulty arises when the empath begins to confuse compassion with obligation. Feeling someone as pain does not mean carrying it for them. Understanding another person as struggle does not mean becoming responsible for solving it. Every individual must ultimately face their own emotional challenges and make decisions about how to grow beyond them. When an empath takes on that responsibility, they unintentionally interfere with the natural process of personal accountability. Another consequence of this pattern is the loss of emotional boundaries. When empaths constantly focus on the needs and struggles of others, they may neglect their own well-being. Their attention becomes directed outward, leaving little space to recognize their own feelings, limits, and needs. Over time, this imbalance can create emotional fatigue, where the empath feels drained by the continuous flow of external emotions they attempt to manage. Recognizing that they are not responsible for fixing others allows empaths to reclaim balance in their relationships. Their sensitivity remains valuable, but it becomes guided by awareness rather than obligation. They can listen with compassion without absorbing every emotional storm around them. They can offer understanding without sacrificing their own stability. This shift does not make the empath less caring. Instead, it allows their empathy to exist in a healthier form, where support is offered without carrying burdens that belong to someone else. By maintaining this balance, the empath protects their own emotional well-being while still honoring their natural ability to understand the emotional experiences of others. The deeper role of an empath is often misunderstood because people tend to focus only on their kindness, sensitivity, or emotional support. While these qualities are certainly part of their nature, they do not fully explain the impact empaths have on the psychological world around them. The true significance of their presence lies in their ability to awaken awareness. Through their heightened sensitivity to emotional truth, they naturally reveal hidden aspects of the human psyche that many individuals have learned to ignore, suppress, or deny. Human beings are skilled at creating identities that allow them to function smoothly in society. Over time, people shape their personalities around what feels acceptable, admired, or safe. They highlight certain traits while quietly pushing other emotions or impulses out of sight. Feelings such as insecurity, resentment, jealousy, fear, or unresolved grief are often hidden beneath layers of social behavior and personal narratives. These emotions do not disappear simply because they are ignored. Instead, they remain active beneath the surface, quietly influencing decisions, reactions, and relationships. An empath as sensitivity allows them to perceive these hidden emotional layers with unusual clarity. They tend to notice when someone's outward behavior does not fully match the emotional energy they carry. A person may present confidence while quietly struggling with self-doubt, or display calmness while holding unresolved tension. The empath senses these contradictions not through analysis alone, but through an intuitive awareness of emotional patterns. This awareness creates a subtle shift in the psychological space around them. When someone interacts with an empath, they may begin to feel emotions that were previously pushed aside. Feelings that had been carefully buried can surface unexpectedly in conversation or reflection. The empath may not intentionally point out these hidden aspects, yet their presence makes it more difficult for emotional illusions to remain intact. This process can feel unsettling because it challenges the familiar image people hold of themselves. Many individuals prefer to see their identity as stable and consistent, When hidden emotions begin to appear, it disrupts that sense of certainty, yet this moment of disruption is also the beginning of greater awareness. Once an emotion becomes visible, it can no longer quietly control behavior from the background of the mind. Awareness is the first step in any meaningful psychological transformation. When individuals begin to recognize their suppressed emotions, they gain the opportunity to understand the deeper forces shaping their lives. Patterns that once seemed mysterious or frustrating start to reveal their origins. Reactions that once felt automatic become clear when the underlying emotions are acknowledged. The empath's role in this process is not to force change or demand confrontation. Their influence works more quietly than that. By sensing emotional truth and responding with authenticity, they create an environment where hidden aspects of the psyche are gently illuminated. In that light, individuals can begin to see themselves more honestly. Something hidden becomes visible. Transformation becomes possible. Emotions that were once avoided can be understood, integrated, and gradually released. Old patterns can be questioned, and new forms of self-awareness can emerge. Through this awakening of awareness, the empath becomes a subtle catalyst for psychological growth, allowing deeper parts of the human mind to step forward into understanding. In the end, the empath's journey is not about carrying the weight of the world or rescuing every wounded soul they encounter. Their path is far more profound than that. Wherever they go, something hidden begins to stir. Silence becomes uncomfortable. Masks begin to slip, and emotions long buried start to rise toward the surface. This is not destruction, it is revelation. Because before anything can truly change, it must first be seen. Many will misunderstand this role. Some will welcome the clarity that comes from facing their inner world, while others may resist the mirror that exposes it. Yet the empath's purpose does not depend on approval or acceptance. Their presence alone invites honesty into spaces where denial once ruled. Without forcing, without demanding, they illuminate truths that quietly wait to be acknowledged. The world does not awaken through comfort alone. Awakening begins the moment illusion loses its power, and awareness takes its place. And those who feel deeply, who sense what others try to hide, are often the silent catalysts of that shift. So if you carry this sensitivity, do not mistake it as a burden meant to fix everyone around you. It is a rare form of perception, one that reveals what lies beneath the surface of human behavior. Your role is not to heal every wound, but to bring light where darkness has long been ignored, because once the hidden is seen, the unconscious becomes conscious. And from that moment forward, transformation is no longer impossible, it becomes inevitable.